Okay, hello everybody and welcome to our presentation. My name is Monica and I'm presenting on behalf of myself and Christine today. We've chosen to do the National Quality Area 1, which is Educational Program and Practice. We just thought this was quite an interesting quality area and one that lacks a bit of structure in terms of how it can be assessed, and this is something that we've been looking at for a little while and just wanted to find out more about. So hopefully it's educational to you guys as well. All right. So to start off with, I wanted to just go over what the National Quality Framework actually is, or we call it the NQF in the industry. So the National Quality Framework operates under an applied law system comprising of the Education and Care Services and the Education and Care Services Regulation. So it's a law and regulations document. So what is laid down in this document is actually law and can be reported if it's not being followed. So it was built to set a national standard for children's education and care across Australia, and this also includes family daycare and some after-school practices as well. It is nationwide, the laws, but there are some differences here and there depending on each state. So we're just focusing on New South Wales for this presentation. Okay, so the accessible elements within this quality area, there are 3 accessible elements. The first one that we'll talk about is element 1.1, approved learning frameworks. So this basically just outlines that the program should follow the needs and interests of the children. The program should contribute to the outcomes listed in and should follow a nationally approved learning framework. And for us here in Australia, it's the Early Years Learning Framework for birth to 5 years old. And for children in school aged care, it's called My Time, Our Place. With this element, it's really important that the program that's being developed is meaningful, and this meaningfulness comes about through the collection of observations of children, so that on assessment it should not be difficult to justify why you've chosen a certain program or sequence of events to develop the child or children in their interests or in any sort of skills that they have. So authorised officers consider a range of factors when determining if a service meets the national quality standard for approved learning frameworks. So the officers can check how educators collect and interpret information about children for program development, how services develop programs that are responsive to and promote children's wellbeing, development and learning, how educators critically think about what is offered and why, and how documentation or information about the development of the program shows an ongoing cycle of planning and evaluation informing children's experiences in the program. So this sort of outlines, it is not set in stone, but it does need to be really, really carefully considered so that when you are being assessed, that you have backup to say, yeah, this is why I chose to do this, and it needs to be well informed. So then moving on to the next slide, these are all linked together quite well. So element 1.2 refers to the need for information to be kept and available. So this information, which is the documentation of the children and the program, needs to be visible to parents, kept on the premises, and the reason we added this third point in is that because observations could be a more sort of private information, so that needs to be shared with parents still, but in a more sort of not stuck on the wall, obviously. So the following information that must be given to the parent of a child on request is information about the content and operation of the educational program as it relates to that child, so not any child, just their child, and information about that child's participation in the program, and a copy of assessments or evaluations in relation to that child. So those sorts of documents need to be kept on the premises, as parents should be able to view them immediately. Okay, element 1. And I should mention in that previous slide that with reference to theories, this one links really well into the Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems theory. So that is that the community, school, family, and individual and peers, so the different contexts of a child should interrelate to provide the best possible environment for a child in any context. This links really well into element 1.2 because the parents should be communicating with the school to find out what the children are doing at school, how they can support this learning at home, and to note any sort of issues that may be arising that need to be taken further, or how the community can help as well. So we thought that linked in quite well there with the Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems theory. All right. Element 1.3, which is documentation. So you'll notice that these elements actually sort of run in a bit of a cycle. So documentation for a child of a preschool age or under must include assessments of the child's developmental needs, interests, experiences, and participation in the educational program, and assessment of the child's progress against the outcomes of the educational program. The Early Years Learning Framework states that assessment for learning refers to the process of gathering and analysing information as evidence about what children know, can do, and understand. So there's actually no prescribed method for documentation of the educational program assessments or evaluations. This has been left up to each individual centre to take it upon themselves to sort of figure out what works best. In my experience, I've seen it being done on an online program, and I feel like that works quite well. But I've also seen a few other centres who just handwrite or might do it on a Word document and print it out for the parents. So yeah, it's done in a variety of ways, and that's all okay as long as it's accessible and it links in with element 1.1. The other thing that actually hasn't been prescribed is how much documentation is needed for the educational program or for individual child assessment. It states though that these documentation requirements will be influenced by the number, ages, and capabilities of the children and how often they attend the service among other things. So under this element, the authorised officers may discuss about the phases of program and planning, how and when the documentation is gathered within the development of the program. So it would be useless to say that you'd collect information about a child after the program has run, which would have shaped the program. So you want to be collecting information and developing the program based on that information. So it needs to run in sort of a course. It's also authorised officers can also check how educators are drawing upon various theoretical influences and perspectives to inform the program and maximise opportunities for all children to engage and participate. So this means that teachers need to be aware, for example, of the Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems theory and understand that why they need to present this information to the parents, why it's important and how it's going to contribute to the best interests of the child in the care. So I found a document online that talks about the importance of documentation of children's work. And this document actually stated 6 ways that it contributes to the quality of early childhood programs. And I thought this was a really, really nice sort of reminder to why we do what we do, because it is quite hard often. So documentation of children's work encourages educators to help children revisit learning opportunities. It encourages children to understand that their efforts are taken seriously. So that occurs when we sit down with a child and we say, show me what you're doing, and we write it down, and the child then feels important. It encourages continuous teacher planning and evaluation. So when you take an observation, you then need to plan and evaluate how that child is learning and how we can extend that learning. So that really reminds teachers that they need to do that. It fosters parent appreciation and participation. So parents who might read an observation might be more inspired then to supply more information about the home life of that child, which once again will contribute to the program. So it fosters teachers' research and process awareness, so it means that teachers need to be on board and on the ball with what they know and continue to attend learning opportunities. And it provides information that cannot be obtained through standardized testing. So it's a visual sort of form of documentation rather than comparing everyone to the same thing. It allows teachers to follow one child and see what their strengths are in whatever area is chosen by that child. Okay, so how will this look? I've thought of a way that we could kind of combine all of these elements, and I know it's going to be hard, but to combine all these elements and put it into practice. So a program updated fortnightly would allow almost ample time for one observation per child to be submitted within each fortnight, and the observation of each child needs to reference the participation in the current program. That's sort of reflective, and how they will be challenged or supported in the program to follow. So as an example, you might choose to observe Harry painting or building blocks. So let's choose Harry is building blocks in the playground. Harry chooses colourful blocks and is working on stacking in a rainbow formation. So that could be a reflective thing that Harry's actually developed skills through the last program, which could have been on building. And to extend that, you could actually take it in a different way and say, is Harry able to form the rainbow using paints, or can he mix paints to create colours? Is he interested in colours, or is it building that was engaging him with the colourful aspect of that observation? So picking from one child, reflecting, and moving on to the next one. I thought fortnightly could work, but the next slide will talk about possible implications. So issues that may need to be addressed. In my experience and through speaking to professionals, it's often just time allowances and staffing being short-staffed. So for an educator to go off the floor, they need to be replaced by another educator. This can take away from quality time with the children. Children may become unsettled because of this. And it also costs money for teachers to be replaced for certain amounts of time. Another thing is that it does take a long time, and that educators often aren't confident in their skills in observation and programming and documentation. So sort of a way to fix that could be to help educate educators and teachers on how they can do this in a timely way. I thought another option that could be presented would be to potentially offer some money for educators to do this at home, but that's obviously up to the educator. Just timing has been a really big problem. So hopefully that has been quite a good overview of outcome 1, and that there's been something to be gained out of that, and that you'll feel confident now to go ahead and put this into practice in your centre and not feel nervous around the time of assessments and ratings. So good luck, and hope it's all been good. Thank you very much. Bye.